Well, I wanted to spend a few minutes talking about something that I think is important um, for men, especially, and perhaps I might be able to offer some advice to those younger than me. Um, so I was engaged um, 11 years ago, and there is um, a lot of advice on the internet. Uh, no matter which platform you'd like to search, you'll find lots of dating advice. But particularly, let's say you're a Christian, or let's say you're a Catholic. I'm a Catholic convert, and there's a lot of dating advice out there, and a lot of people who would encourage um, young men, particularly young men, to find find someone who shares their faith and who, you know, find that young woman or woman of whatever age, depending on your age, who shares your same faith, maybe goes to the same parish, and or if you're Protestant, who goes to the same church, whatever. And you be the man, you ask her out, and you take the initiative, make the first step, and you do the approach. And so I get that. I totally get that. I'm a Gen X. I'm 50. And I waited for almost 40 years. I was 39 when I got engaged. And I had dated a handful of times prior to that, nothing serious, and never crossed any lines. So, um, so I was going to this parish, traditional parish, and I met a woman there, and so it ended up after time had gone by, I approached her, and started talking to her, and eventually we started going out and started into the, you know, more and more interested, and eventually one day after time had gone by, I asked her the question. She said yes. And so, textbook, right? I did everything right. Here it was. Here I was, 39, finally. Yeah. Um, so, my word of advice, obviously, I'm not married, never have been married. So that engagement was ended, and there's quite a story behind that. But let's say I didn't end the engagement; she ended the engagement. But I'll leave that for the time being. I just want to say to the young men out there, um, maybe you're just starting out. Let's say you're in your mid 20s, early 20s, mid 20s, wondering about things and looking at the world today. Um, It's a different world than when I was in my 20s. Um, I've spent my whole life in a very low social bracket, in a very low economic tax bracket. I've always been at the bottom of the barrel, the bottom of the pile, the bottom of the totem pole. That's my whole entire life, from the time I was a kid all through all my working career. I've just worked at manual labor jobs. I made decent money in some of them, and benefits. It's a bit of a pension in one, but it's all. I've always just been sort of a blue collar, you know, work with my hands, work with my back, you know, keeps you in shape. But it's not the sort of job that women are gonna value. And so maybe you're a young guy and you're sitting here in your, your 20s, mid 20s, even late 20s, and you're looking around. And I don't know what to tell you because I'm not in your shoes. But I'll tell you what I would tell myself back in 1995, 96, 97. I'll say what I would say to myself. If you see a girl that you like, maybe she goes to your church. If you see one that you like, go for it. Okay? Go for it. And assuming all things are equal, assuming you're ready, I see a lot of advice out there saying, well, make sure you have a super duper job and make sure you've got all the money settled and you got the roadmap all figured out. um, no one no one has it nailed down. No one has it nailed down. It doesn't happen. So I'm gonna say go for it. And if there's a girl you like, say you're 25, she's 25, and you can see through the static and try to get the picture to focus, and if you what you see is a good picture, I'd say go for it and stick with that. If you have a gut feeling that is the right thing, follow your gut. And it may not it may not work. It may not work, but don't let the opportunity, don't let the chance pass you by. I got rejected. When I was that age, I asked a couple girls out. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just there was no cell phones. There was no there's no social media back then. It was all no emails. I didn't have a computer. There's no internet. I had to actually go up or write a letter, mail it, and find her address. Literally. They just have to go up and ask them, and pay them a compliment and say hi. You, you, they were all girls I knew. And I went out on a couple of blind dates with. But if there's someone that you like and your gut tells you that she's what you're looking for, then don't let the chance pass you by. Go for it and work at it. Work at it and try to help her. Try to help her see you in the same light. Love is a choice. It's not magic. It's choice. And you need to be, grown up enough to make that choice. But if you think it's what you want to do, go for it. Let's say your time's gone by. Maybe you've asked a few out, or you just haven't seen one that's any good. And I see you get into your 30s, and now you're working and still not maybe getting the money, but or maybe you are, and you're looking at like all these, you know. For me, once I got to my 30s, like I grew up in a maybe a different time, but once I got into my 30s, the mid 2000s, um, the women my age, the ones that were, wife material, they were gone. They were gone. Like the good ones, they're all married and having kids, and the kids are 3, 4, 5, 6 years old. And you start to begin, this is where I'm going with this, you start to begin to think that you've missed the boat, and maybe you have. The ship has sailed, and there's no way to, swim after the boat and get it's gone. It ain't coming back, and you begin to be you begin to feel a sense of desperation in yourself. Let's say you're 35, and you go to church, and there's like nobody. There's like teenagers, which 10 years ago, you could have legitimately looked at, but and now you're like, well, they've got to be, at least well into their 20s. If you're 35, she's got to be like 23, 24, 25 to even, consider. And so, what do? Do you start to get desperate? And so, that's maybe that's where I was in my 30s, my mid 30s, getting into my later 30s. And so, what happens is you start out in life, you set a little goal for yourself, and you have this ideal, this high benchmark that you set. You think, oh, I want to find this wonderful woman. We're going to have a wedding in the church. It's going to be wonderful. I want the bells to ring, the choir to sing, the white dress, the guest, the cake, the car, the whole darn thing. And then we're going to have kids, and we're going to have whatever life you envision as being a good life. And then you're going to have all this stuff. And then it never happens, and then time goes on, and what you do is you start to downgrade your your dream until you know you just start lowering the bar and lowering your expectations. And then, not that there's anything wrong with making adjustments up and down in life, where life is all about compromises, but what happens is you begin to compromise not only just on the external, objective things, but you can begin to compromise internally and say, well, I always wanted to marry a Christian, but I don't. There's nobody in my church. I don't know anybody. All the good Christian girls, they're all married. So, um, here's where things can get dicey. You say you sort of mentally compromise inside, and you say, okay, well, as long as she respects my faith, as long as she respects my desire, as long as she agrees to, you know, come to church with me and raise the kids in church, and maybe we'll send them to a Christian school, even if she doesn't believe herself, but as long as she's willing to go along, and you're gonna convert her. So, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just saying that you shouldn't go into it. You should not go into a relationship. Uh, that's a presumption. my opinion. It's a presumption. And so this is what happens. You start to sort of downgrade your expectations to where you think it will be realistic, and then it still doesn't happen, you know. And so you hit 40 and you're still not married, you know, what do you do? And the only real women that are out there are the women who've already been through one marriage and it's out the window, and now they've got the kids, and you're taking on someone else's kids and her baggage and all this, and maybe she's got an annulment. Well, annulments, in my opinion, annulments these days are a dime a dozen. Anybody can get an annulment for anything. The world is full of, if you go on the Catholic dating app, it's full of women with annulments. They're no different than the single women on Match.com and Tinder and all that. I'm not on dating apps, so I when I was younger I tried, and there's no success. Um, Big waste of money and time. So my advice is to young men, I guess you would call them Gen Zs, is if you see that a girl that you feel strongly for in your gut, assuming your heart's in the right place and you're where you should be spiritually, I would say go for it. Take the initiative, make the approach, and try. Because I'm going to tell you, if you don't and you miss those early chances, you will not get those chances back when you get to be my age. Ain't going to happen. You might get a second and a third chance through your 20s, into your 30s. But once you get to be my age, unless you're rich, if you're rich and you got money or you're better looking or something, you might have a chance. But if you're like me and you're like a 2 or 3 or 4 out of 10 and at the bottom of the barrel and a blue collar, and it's not going to happen. Not going to happen. Women are not going to look at you. Not today. Maybe 75 years ago they would have, when they were just glad to have a good man, you know. He comes home every night, brings home the paycheck, you know, good with the kids, all that, you know. But those days are gone. Those days are gone. They won't look at you. So seize the day. If you're a Gen Z, if you're whatever, if you're my age, not saying it can't happen. With God, all things are possible. 100%. 100%. With God, all things are possible. Lots of things in this world happen. But never presume. Never presume. And love is a choice. And I know it's pretty toxic out there right now. Women have pretty much poisoned the well, but there's good ones. There's good ones. I know you probably won't believe me, but there's good ones. And I'm not going to say just pray a novena, sit at home, you know, and pray. You got to do more than that. Love is a choice. You have to go. you have to do. It's like evangelism. It's go ye into all the world. Well, it's courtship is a little bit the same. It's going to take some work. And you say, well, you're not married. Well, what? Why are you giving advice? You're not married. Well, I'm telling you, I did. I screwed up. Okay. I had a girlfriend. Well, I've had several, but I had a girlfriend when I was young, and I blew it. I wasn't ready. I was typical early 20s, didn't know what I had, just not good. I messed up. I screwed it up. She's gone. She married another guy, had a beautiful family, beautiful life. Don't miss it, son. If you find a good one, go for it and you hang on to her because she's going to be irreplaceable. Okay? So that's my advice. Don't mess around. Don't let time go by for years and years and years because once all these years and you get gray and you get old and all wrinkly like me, you're not going to find women looking at you. They don't look at you. Not with the same eyes. When you're in your early to mid 20s, that's when you got to get at it and get cracking and go for it. And I know that's not the most popular advice, but it's what you got to do. It's what you got to do. If you sit at home and just pray that God will somehow bring the right woman, you know, she's going to knock on your door and say, "Can I go out with you?" It's probably not going to happen. And yeah, so I'm not even going to say it's up to you, but you must take the steps and be brave enough to at least give it a try. It didn't work for me. I messed up when I was young, but I did try. I know it was a different time. There was no cell phones, there was no internet, there was none of this stuff. It was all very old school. You had to walk up to her and smile and say, "I like your dress. Hi. Uh, after youth group, could we go out? You know, I had a car. Thankfully, I could, you know, we could go for a bite to eat, or buy ice cream. Just whatever. It was a different time, but I think that it's important. I think that it's important to not let this time of your life pass you by. So that's my advice to the Gen Z crowd, and I'll leave it at that for now. But yeah, I just want to give some hope and some encouragement out there that there are good Christian women. Not many, not many, but there's a few. I don't know if there's ever been many real, but a virtuous woman who can find. If you find one, go for it. Take care.